So it's time from 8:03, and I will call to order the Tuesday, October 6th session of the Morton Select Board. Let the record show that 4 members are present. You're missing Mrs. Meg Arts, and Town Manager is present as well. We have a very short agenda this evening. I believe just one item. You or vote of fall town meeting partner. Mike, why don't you lead us through what still needs to be considered?
Okay. So you did vote on most of them at the last meeting. So one of the ones that you have not voted on is Opeb.
Meg is just joining us now.
Oh, that makes it easier.
Yes. Meg.
Hello.
So Article 21, or no, 23.
23, okay.
So OPEB, just want me to go over briefly what OPEB is, Jack, just in case.
Yes.
OPEB is other post-employment benefits, and really what it is it's started a few years ago where the government started saying that towns had to start accounting for the future cost of health insurance for retirees. And so originally you just did an actuarial report, figured out what that cost was, but there was no requirement to fund it at all. But now it's become a push by obviously the financial advisors and the banks that we borrow through. They want to see that you're making an effort to fund your OPEB. So our liability, it is being re-looked at now. Actually, every 2 years it's looked at, and they're going through the study right now, the actuarials. But it's around $52 million. And so what we've been doing to make a commitment to it is we've been trying to increase $5,000 each year more into our OPEB. So, you know, we put 85,000 in one year, 90, 95. Now we're looking to put 100,000 in this year. Actually, the company that's doing the actuarial study agreed to attend tomorrow night's finance committee to talk to them about OPEB and what it means and how it's impacted when you don't fund it. So my recommendation would be to put $100,000 into the OPEB.
Okay. What's the current value or the current holdings in this account, Mike? It's not a lot, right?
In the OPEB?
Yeah.
It is 596, 607.82. Thank you. That's it.
It's a summary. Did everybody get that?
Yes.
And I was very impressed that you pulled that out.
So as you can see, we're starting to build up the interest now, and the goal is, you know, to get to a point where we can build up the fund enough that the interest each year could cover some of the health insurance costs for retirees.
So Mike, we're trying to get a point where we're, trying to, it's like a pension, right? We're just trying to make sure that we're protecting ourselves versus any major increases. Is that what the whole goal here is of this?
Yeah, I always say, you know, it's kind of, the way they look at OPEB is it's like if you were a private company and you would declare bankruptcy and you wouldn't exist anymore, and then there'd be that $52 million liability out there. We're not going to cease to exist, and we are funding the health insurance each year through our budget.
Yeah.
But this is a commitment to show that we're trying to get to a point where it can fund itself. We don't have to use our budget to fund retiree health insurance each year.
Yeah.
Is there a number that we can get an annuity number or anything? Is there anything like that I'm not even sure if a town can buy an annuity, but is there any, like, can we be working towards an annuity where it's just that amount?
Yeah, there's an OPEB trust fund that we invest in.
So that is an annuity. The trust fund is an annuity.
Yep.
Okay.
And there's quite a few towns that are in that.
Okay.
And so if we put $100,000 in there, and with what we've taken out of free cash so far for the town meeting on October 17th, it'd still be over $2 million left in free cash. The next article is stabilization, and I would hold off on stabilization this year myself until we see what happens in May.
So do we need to vote on Article 23, Mike?
Yes.
Any further discussion amongst the board members? Seeing and hearing none, Chair would entertain a motion to approve Article 23 for OPEB with a 100K addition to that account.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, motion and a second. I'll go with roll call. Meg?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes, on Article 23.
Brad?
Yes.
Renee?
Aye.
Not a girl.
Who will say yes. So Article 23 is good. And Mike, do we need to vote no action on 24 or just leave it as it is?
You can just leave it as it is for now. The other article, do you have in your packet? Yeah, you do. Article 21.
Okay.
So Article 21 is the bylaw. So this is for the wage and salary employees, the non-union employees. And as we're working on contracts for 3 years for union employees right now, this would be for the non-union employees. And a couple of things. First of all, is a request for a change from Parks and Recreation Coordinator to the Director of Parks and Recreation. That is the standard name that most of the towns go by for that position. And I know that the Recreation Director is supportive of that. The next part is the wage scales. And so the way we developed the wage scales is we looked at where people are positioned now, what their salary level is now, and to make sure that over the next 3 years they're not going above the salary range, that everyone would remain in that salary range. And with what I'm proposing, I think that would cover that.
So, Mike, I'm not quite sure. I don't understand the logic behind, you're essentially, I'm assuming that you're accounting for a 4 or 5% raise year over year to make sure that people remain in the budget. I don't see how that dictates the proposed range. I mean, I would think that we would do some due diligence on what are these positions making across the state, and then make a determination for what's right for the town of Norton. You have a range, I think, because I don't want to say longevity doesn't mean anything, but I mean, you have a range because if people are in that position, just because you're there and your potential increases year over year, maybe more than what the range is, well, the range shouldn't be dependent upon the person in the position or their salary. It should be dependent upon what the position should be paid. So I'm not sure that I support that methodology in this case. I think I'd like to see a little bit more due diligence on where should these ranges be, not where should they be if we give people a year-over-year raise.
Yeah, I agree with your logic to a point, except Norton is never, ever in an area where we could say higher than any other town. And then the other argument against what you're saying is, so you're going to say that an employee hits a maximum salary and they never get a raise again?
I mean, if I'm working in a position, right, and my position has a range and I hit that range, then yes, like I either need to look for an advancement or look for a different position. I mean, I've had people who've worked for me who have maxed out of their range because they've been there for so long. I agree with you on, we are paid the lowest, and I think that's why it makes even more sense for us to be looking at what do other towns pay, and then having, that discussion on, look, we are the lowest paid. If we want to make sure that we maintain and we keep our good employees, then we need to be competitive with other towns. So again, not using, somebody's salary and potential increases year over year to dictate the range, but really looking at what should that range be. And I think it'll be advantageous for two purposes. Is one, to say, look, we are one of the lowest paid towns within the state, and we need to adjust it for these reasons.
I think while that in some ways makes sense, I think in the economic climate right now, it's going against everything we've been talking about to increase ranges at this time and to try to bring incumbent people up to the going ranges that other municipalities are paying. And if for some reason we lose someone, we're going to have a hard time probably replacing them even without the longevity. But I just don't think that this year is the year to make wholesale adjustments so that we're comparable with similar towns.
I'm not saying that we would approve all of them, Brad, but I think that we need the knowledge to see how far below is Norton, right? And then really, let's prioritize the positions and say these are the ones that we need to make sure in today's environment that we have people filling them, right? But at least it gives us that knowledge and that information to make a more informed decision than just saying we're going to change this range because in 3 years, if I give the office administrator 5% year over year, they're going to be outside of the current range.
And go ahead, Brad.
No, I would support something like that, but I don't think it's something that can be done between now and town meeting. And if we,
you know what?
if we go into,
if we're backed in the corner and we make a decision because we didn't do the appropriate steps.
no, we're not. We have to make some adjustments. I'm not positive, but I would assume with negotiations that the higher range that's currently in place, if we are making contracts with people, that the 30-year out would probably be above the existing top pay level. And it's just a bookkeeping thing that we have to do. And if we want to be competitive and have competitive wages, we have to do that and plan that ahead.
So we discussed, essentially, we're looking at 2%. That's how we've been doing contracts. So if Jack's numbers are correct, then that's accounting for way more than 2% over 3 years.
Well,
If you're talking about just salary, I mean, their packages are a little bit more, if you add up their packages, I guarantee you it's more than 2%.
well,
Right.
people,
If we're looking at being consistent, right? Like it's, when we
Yeah,
talk
but when
about 2%, and then if we have the budget, then we would provide the merit increase, or the performance, the additional increase based on performance.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm a little, I guess, one's guaranteed and one's a range. I'm having trouble finding that, jumping that same comparison, sorry. I'm having trouble, like, one is a range in which they could fall in between, one is a guaranteed increase. I think it's quite different. I mean, I could be wrong, correct me if I'm not getting the logic.
I mean, I think that, yes, you're correct in that. I'm saying the methodology here for us coming up with a range is flawed. That's what I'm saying.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mike.
A couple things. I know people may get 2%, but they also have steps and lanes. So they're getting more than 2% in the contracts, the union contracts. And I do agree that it would be great to do a complete salary survey, and I would be more than happy to put an article on the May town meeting warrant to fund that, so that we could hire a company to go out and do a complete salary survey of all the positions that we have. And if we find something that's out of whack, we can come back and adjust this at a future date.
And Mr. Chairman, you put a lot of numbers out here. Could you just walk us through? I mean,
Sure. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm like trying to figure out what you're doing that. So
I'm just trying to, for some of these, the black dots are ones that I flagged as having, what I consider fairly substantial increases. And then this is the percentage from current max to proposed max. This 36% is the increase from the low end of office administrator to the low end of the proposed. It's a 36% increase, that's rather large. But office administrator, high end is 9%, assistant to the town manager 16, highway super 9, assistant water and sewer 9, town clerk 9. Those are, I know we're talking ranges and it's not a guarantee of adjustment there, but that is a big swing.
Mr. Town Manager, I guess the one that really stand out to me was office administrator. Go 20 on the low end, 21 to $28 more. I just wanted to understand your methodology.
Yeah. Well, part of the issue is that we're always a lot of times raising the higher ends and not raising the lower ends, and a lot of that doesn't make sense a lot of times. So that's part of it. And then the other issue with the office administrator is you look at what a person in the clerical union at the top step would be getting, which would be someone comparable to the office administrator, and that's how the salary is calculated.
And then I guess the other question, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
The other question I have is the assistant to the town manager. And then I feel, and I could be wrong, but I remember seeing ranges higher that for town clerk. Am I off base on that, or is that seems to be very limited? We were to begin with, but if we're going to do it, if part of the goal is to get us into check with other towns, I could be wrong, but I think the town clerk's low. Is on that or not?
What was that, Jeff?
I didn't say anything. That was Michael.
Let me repeat, so you guys didn't hear what I just said?
No, the last thing I heard from you was, I could be wrong on that, but I believe the town clerk is low, but then I heard a statement somewhere else.
Oh, okay. No, I think the town clerk, it just doesn't, the town clerk doesn't seem to be in line with what I've seen for town clerks. And the assistant town managers, just, if you could have just explained to me what the big adjustment there is. I'm not familiar with that position, so I can't. And I'm not sure if that position is equal in other, I know we have an assistant to the town manager, not assistant town manager.
Right. Right. Yeah, so that position, the same as I had mentioned before, just looking at what the union contracts are and the potential, what people have to get over the next 3 years. And then looking at the position that we have and the person in it, what their salary is, just trying to make sure that everyone stays below the range.
And the town clerk, my concern about the town clerk is that range. I mean, we surveyed, I surveyed the Pembrokes, like the ones towns that were this, that town range is going to fall within those towns.
Yeah, that's something we would have to look at.
Okay. Something about an office administrator, when I just say it with respect. So, being almost in line with the town clerk, who's responsible for so much of our record keeping. Maybe I just overvalue it. I don't know. Maybe I'm new at this.
I mean, from my standpoint, I'm not opposed to making adjustments. I just don't feel like I have the backup and the data that says that these are the right values right now. And in light of everything else going on, it just doesn't seem the best decision to move forward with this one.
So let's, what article is this, Jack? Vote?
This is 21.
At least, put it for further discussion. So I'll move, to support Article 21 as written.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. And Meg, for your benefit, I don't know if it's requirement or if it's just good habit. Motions are made in the affirmative, so we don't do things negatively. So if it's something that we do not want to go, we make a motion and no one votes for it. All right, so Chair has heard a motion to approve Article 21 as written. We'll go to the roll call. Meg?
No?
Michael?
Can I pass for right now?
Sure. Renee?
No.
Brad?
Yes.
I'm a no. Back to you, Michael.
Yes.
Okay. Motion fails 3-2. All right. Anything else?
So can I just, Mr. Chairman, may I?
Sure.
Can we just, before we just move on, what specifically would we like to see for an obvious, I don't want to do is vote this down, and then like next year, we're in the same situation next year, and then Mike's in a situation where he's kind of like, what do we need to see Mike, from Mike to move an article like this forward for consideration?
I mean, personally, for me, I want to see, a comp survey to show where we fall within the range of other towns within Massachusetts, and then towns that are comparable to Norton in size and scope. And I certainly, I know obviously the COVID environment is a little different. I wouldn't right now say that I wouldn't support this coming up through a special town meeting if there was something else that we brought forward and this were an article. So at a future time, if we had that information. Otherwise, I would plan that, let's make sure that we get it on the next town meeting. That's my recommendation.
I would agree with that.
And can I ask one more point of information, more of the town manager, Mr. Chairman?
Please do.
Mike, in this fiscal year 2020, are you proposing an HR consultant at all in the budget? Okay, is this one of the assignments that you're looking
FY 2020.
to 2022? I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, those are, thank you very much. I apologize.
Okay, great. Anything else, Mike?
No, that's it for now, till hopefully after your executive session.
All right. So before we move off of town meeting, we did receive an email from,
Well, let's go.
I believe that was her.
Sorry.
Boss, that's quite all right.
I thought I was muted. How embarrassing.
That's all right. No, you're just, you're happy to be here, so it's good to have that.
Love the excitement.
So I'm going to ask the town manager for a point of order, because Paula's note was regarding the articles that are on the special town meeting, as opposed to the regular fall meeting. Are we able to speak to that without having it on the agenda?
Yeah, you mentioned town meeting articles on the agenda, so that's fine.
Okay. So Paula's note was requesting that we consider delaying the votes, I think, on Article 4 and Article 5 on the special town meeting warrant concerning the village center. Paula, since you're on, if you'd like to give us your view on that.
I'll be right with you.
Sure.
What the concerns that we had in talking with several folks in passing or knocking on doors was the special town meeting articles for the Norton Village Center Core. And so we had concerns about that going through, mainly because when we have spoken with folks, folks had no idea what it was, explained what it was to them, and they were interested in it, but at the same time, when we talked about the zoning and things, they were concerned about some of the zoning issues. And one of the other big issues that came up was traffic. The zoning, I've spoken with Paul DiGiuseppe, and he can't give me any idea of how many folks or apartments or the traffic that will be there, but it seems when you look at the zoning, there will be a large amount of traffic that could go through there at different times during the day. Some of the zoning looks like Mansfield and Attleboro, so it could be a lot of traffic. So that was a concern. I don't believe any traffic study that was part of this center project. And we're also getting another 160 units of apartments possibly down Mansfield Avenue, and I believe they are going through traffic studies. So the concern is that people aren't really aware of what's going on. It is residents' town center. They're used to going in there and getting what they need. There is a change which we could all get used to, but at the same time, the big business is how do we deal with the traffic? I've been stuck in traffic all the way down to Roach Brothers to get to my house at 16 Mansfield Avenue. So, and this is at COVID without, the TPA, without Great Woods. So there's that concern that there's a major portion, I think, that is missing from this proposal. I think the zoning's very aggressive, and I don't think people know about it. And, it's one of those things that people usually sit down and talk about, and, information passes from each other and they're enlightened. And that hasn't been happening. When I've knocked on folks' door to say hello, I can't talk now. I'm working from home on insurance claims. So it just seems like this is, I've heard from folks that they say this is being rushed through. We want to know more about it. Told them to go to the town website. So sorry for the long ramble, but it just seems that there needs to be some more succinct information and time for people to absorb this, and also to have some more input on traffic before this goes through.
Thank you, Paula. Just for the record, are you able to just state your name and address? Sorry, I didn't ask you to do that.
Yes,
Sorry.
Paula Foss, 16 Mansfield Ave, Morton.
And Bill Farrow at 16 Mansfield Avenue also.
So, thank you, guys. Mr. Units, since I think you're probably the closest to this in the absence of Paul, the planner, can you speak to some of Paul and Bill's points about traffic studies and what was done for public hearings and notification?
Yeah, I know it's been going on for a long time. It's not something that came out of the blue. And I know that the planning department had several studies and had also had public hearings and meetings. If you remember, a year ago, they worked with the planning council, and we had an open house at Wheaton College. Residents came in and they picked what they thought a village commercial center should look like, what type of buildings, and they had at least, I think they had at least 2 sessions like that were put on by the planning council, and then the planning department took that information that was gathered at those sessions, and that's how the plan was developed. I would say you can't delay. You've already moved these articles forward, and if someone wants to speak and recommend against them at the town meeting, that would be fine. But I mean, this has already been voted on and recommended, and I will say the planning department did a good job in the planning process of trying to get people involved. They advertised all the public hearings, and I don't know what else to say.
And I'd just like to add, like, the first thing, I know, Jack, you asked Mike about reviewing these, but this is the special town meeting warrant, and our agenda is specific on the fall town meeting articles, not the special. But the other thing too, and Paula, this is somewhat frustrating, but this was brought forth by the planning board, and as a public body, the selectmen don't have any authority to remove this from the warrant. So I think that, Mike's recommendation is the best to attend a town meeting and voice your opinions, and then vote against it. And part of your opinion should include what you think should happen before this is brought in front of the town again.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, Michael?
Pretty much to almost what Renee said. I thought I'm infamous for beating the planning board up. So we'll say they did a great job with the public hearing on this, and I know that they had done a traffic study, and when they did the peer review for Cumberland Farms, that pretty much covered that village score and the traffic study. So I know I've heard the question asked to Paul before. So I think the concerns absolutely should just be brought to the town meeting. I'm not saying I'm supporting it one way or the other, but I think if I hear the concerns very loud and clear. And to Renee's point, I think at this point we should just hear them and bring this article to the town meeting.
Well, thank you. We understand your points, and they certainly are quite reasonable.
And Bill and Paula too, if you guys have a conflict and you can't make it to town meeting, I think I personally would be willing to bring your concerns up at town meeting.
Agreed, Renee.
Okay, thank you. We'll do that. And the other point we'll make is that right now it's hard for people to understand everything that's going on because of all of the distraction, to use the a week, 2-week term, I suppose, for all of the going on. But thank you.
Absolutely. We appreciate you guys bringing your concerns.
Yeah, the original input, I'm sure, was available. It's just that recently, over this past year, I'm not so sure it's people's attention and focus. And my concern is just I hope people go to the town meeting and vote. So, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Bill.
Okay.
Have a great night. Hope to see you on the 17th.
Mr. Chairman,
Bye-bye.
Yes, Zach.
can I permission to speak on that matter for a second?
Sure, why not?
I had sat through a few of those meetings with the planning board, just so they understand. This is a 25 to 50 year plan. To do traffic studies or any of that, most of us won't be around. I'll speak for myself. In 50
I was gonna say,
years
Zach,
from
I
now-
plan to be around.
50 years from now, women's is gonna, so to think that anything's gonna happen within the next decade or two is, you can do all the traffic studies you want, but you tell me how many people are gonna be in town 30 years from now, and I'll tell you if you're gonna have a traffic problem. So, I mean, this is a very long-term plan. Businesses, something like CVS would have to literally tear the building down and want to build again, or, anything along that stretch that's already basically grandfathered there. Nothing's going to happen with it. So, I mean, for anybody's concerns in the next couple of decades, they're not going to see anything. That's all.
Okay. Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it. All right. I believe that concludes our agenda this evening. We do have an executive session coming up. Is there any other business to come before the board before we do such a thing?
Renee, wording.
I have it, yeah.
I have it up too. I came prepared this time. Okay, so seeing no further business, I declare under General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21AA3, and Section 21AA that the purpose of the executive session will be to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and to consider the purchase of real property because a discussion of the strategy in open session could compromise the purpose of the executive session. And with the board to, do we have to return, Mike?
I think we're going to vote on the article, right?
Gotcha. Yep, to return to open session at the conclusion of the executive session.
So I move that the board go into executive session under General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3 and Section 21AA6 for the purpose and reasons declared by the chair, and with the board to return to open session thereafter.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, so a roll call vote to go in. Meg?
You're muted.
Yes. I saw you.
Yes.
Michael?
Aye.
Brad?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
I too vote yes.